I remember when my manager called me in one day and told me, "We really value your work and dedication. That is why we're confident that you won't have a problem finding another job." It was the day I finally learned the meaning of a somewhat free market economy. It means demand versus supply and the bottom line. It means total cost of employees and balance sheets. And yes, it means very little room for sentiments. It was time for me to grow up, and it's about time the left in the US does the same. I've seen the multiple reactions to the cancellation of The Late Show with Stephen Colbert, and after carefully collecting all of those lefty tears for my soup, I realized that the left in the US is either playing stupid or is actually stupid. I'm not sure yet which is worse. You tell me. Here are a few reactions you may have heard. First, Sunny Hostin who warns. In the first link in the video details, listen to Sunny Wax lyrical about the Constitution. The second link in the video details, watch Jon Stewart losing his proverbial shirt. And of course, one of the biggest shills, Jimmy Kimmel didn't hold back. It went on. But let's take those as a taste of the criticism that is leveled against CBS. To call Sunny Hostin a drama queen would be a little too charitable. The slave owner descendant, who prefaces every sentence with, "as a person of color," the stinking rich Robin Hood. The law expert who must apologize on air about once a week for lying. The woman who will cancel any dissenting voice in the name of freedom of speech. This liar warns about dismantling the Constitution of the US. And for whom? For a guy who should have really been getting a salary from his true masters in the Democrat White House. Where was the protector of democracy, Sunny Hostin, when Colbert danced with syringes like a buffoon? Where was speaking truth to power then? Sunny? Or should Americans only speak truth to Republican power? Where were you when Biden and his administration lied about COVID? Where were you then, Jon Stewart? In real time, I mean. We know where Kimmel was, of course. When this sad sack isn't shedding crocodile tears over election results, getting faux hysterical on screen about his make-believe dystopian fever dreams, he was pushing the COVID fraud and the safe and effective vaccine down American throats, vilifying many of them who dared to speak truth to power. And Colbert himself. Oh, besides dancing to the White House's flute, he spent whole segments of his propaganda show attacking entrepreneurial Americans for doing their best to keep going through the pandemic. I remember very well his mocking of Dana White's insistence to bring UFC events back, albeit with all of the limitations of what we now know to be fallacies, like social distancing and completely ineffective masks. I wonder, why are they all panicking over this show getting off air? Perhaps it's because they stopped being funny, if they ever were, a long time ago, and became shills for the Dems, and now are running scared the same will happen to them. These hypocrites, who serve their political gurus with one hand, while whining about freedom of speech and the Constitution, are learning a lesson. What is it? Soon. First, let's talk about pants. It's all in the jeans. Then, of course, we had that Sydney Sweeney outrage. Unless you went on a media fast these past couple of weeks, you know what I'm talking about. A commercial showing a white blonde alleged actress wearing jeans. They played on the double meaning of the phonetics and set the whole woke left tribe on fire. Meltdowns like the ones we witnessed online rivaled only those surrounding the election of Trump as president. Racism, eugenics, and the obligatory Nazi propaganda were only some of the terms thrown at American Eagle by insecure, and let's face it, mostly unattractive, professional virtue signalers. This is just another example of what Benjamin Netanyahu named pickles. These are people for whom there is never any satisfaction. It doesn't matter what anyone does, these pickles will find the way to present it as offensive, wrong, cruel, etc. AE could have used a black lady and piss off the body positivity crowd. If they'd used a plus-size woman instead, the militant feminists would have blasted them for objectifying women. The trans activists would be offended that the woman in question doesn't have a $P% carat S and so on and so forth. I wonder also about the use of the eugenics argument, such that it is leveled by people who support butchering kids in order to fulfill a fantasy of perfection, or the Nazi propaganda crowd, who doesn't seem to have any trouble at all with zombies shouting "Gas the Jews" on Western city streets. I find all of the above people laughable, and indeed, the mocking of these people in some quality clips, e.g. Gutfeld, Sky News' Lefties Losing It, turn to my favorite comedy. Now, back to that lesson we mentioned before. Economy. Stupid. It was your own Democratic president who coined this term, so it's funny you don't get it. It's not about race, or eugenics, or the Constitution. Listen, Sunny, Jimmy, Jon, and the rest of you clowns. It's about the economy. Stupid. Removing a useless show like Colbert's from the air is a no-brainer. You should be a bit embarrassed when an ex-professional wrestler needs to explain it to you. On a recent episode of Tyrus broke it down plainly, so every 5-year-old can understand. If you use your show to drive your political agenda, in a one-sided, blind support to one side of the political spectrum, you alienate the other side. So your viewership is cut in about half, judging by the results of the elections. If you further decide to go all the way to the extremities of progressivism, you cut that viewership pie down significantly. What you end up with is a show that costs oodles of dollars, that cater to a small niche crowd. Demand versus supply. Stephen, if what you offer doesn't have demand, you lose money. Now, CBS may be many things, but apparently they are not quite suicidal. They see the trend. They look at the balance sheets and see that this show is losing reportedly around $50 million in a year. And that is why, Stephen, your stupid show got canceled. The same applies to American Eagle. They realize that, in order to actually make money, they need to, sell their products. So, they did what every successful company did, up until about 5 minutes ago, and put out a commercial that appeals to the normative man. They used the oldest trick in the book, a good-looking woman who looks good in their jeans. Men traditionally are attracted to good-looking women, and let me tell you, we don't really care of what color. Women know that men do. Reality demonstrates it very clearly, as AE's stock is rising. Normal people, who don't view the world via the lens of race and identity politic BS, are happy to see a certain return to normality. Instead of a car commercial featuring a bunch of weirdos, with no car in sight, we get a jeans commercial that looks good and evidently is able to convince women to buy said jeans. See, when there is high demand for your jeans, the actress can even be white. Join us back in the real world, wokistus. It's actually quite good to base your life on the pursuit of actual truth, sticking to reality, with some of its harshness, instead of wasting years of your lives on ridiculous fantasies or dystopian panic attacks. See, you should have really realized this when the economy of ideas demonstrated it to you in the best possible way. The demand for your ideological supply was insufficient, and the American people voted in your worst nightmare. The Democrat Party has record low approval ratings. And to quote Jim Malone in The Untouchables, here is the lesson. Thank you for listening.